In NBA history, no one played like Darryl Dawkins, and no one fouled like him. Chocolate Thunder, Sir Slam, the Master of Disaster, Dr. Dunk. In the long and storied history of the NBA, no player has ever commanded a universe of nicknames quite like Darryl Dawkins. He was a force of nature, a personality so immense it could barely be contained by a basketball court. He was a showman, a backboard-shattering icon who played with a joy and ferocity that made him a legend. But to truly understand his legacy, you have to look past the dunks and the nicknames, and into the strange, paradoxical math of his career. Because in NBA history, no one played like Darryl Dawkins, and no one fouled like him. This is the story of a man who existed as a walking contradiction. A player who was so dominant, he led his teams to the NBA Finals. Yet so reckless, he set records for fouls that are considered unbreakable to this day. He was a starting center, a defensive anchor, and an offensive powerhouse who somehow managed to do it all while averaging nearly 5 personal fouls a game. He was a star who spent half his career on the verge of being disqualified. This is the story of how Darryl Dawkins broke the rules, broke the records, broke the backboards, and became an unforgettable legend in the process. To understand the force that would one day shake the foundations of the NBA, you have to go back to Orlando, Florida, where Darryl Dawkins was born on January 11th, 1957. From a young age, it was clear he was different. By the time he reached Maynard Evans High School, he wasn't just a basketball player, he was a phenomenon. Standing at a towering 6'11", he was a man among boys, a physical specimen of raw power and untapped potential. He dominated the court with an almost mythical prowess, averaging an incredible 32 points and 21 rebounds per game. He became one of the most heavily recruited high school athletes in the entire country. But Dawkins' path was never going to be conventional. In an era where virtually every great player went through the college system, he made a decision that sent shockwaves through the basketball world. Foregoing college entirely, he declared for the 1975 NBA draft. At just 18 years old, he became one of the very first players to make the leap directly from high school to the pros. When the Philadelphia 76ers selected him with the number 5 overall pick, they weren't just drafting a player. They were taking a gamble on a revolution. He entered the league not as a timid rookie, but as a fully formed personality. He arrived with a collection of self-anointed nicknames that were as bold and creative as his game: Sir Slam, Dr. Dunk, and the one that would stick forever, Chocolate Thunder. Stevie Wonder, who had attended a Sixers game, was said to have given him the name because he played with thunderous dunks. Dawkins, with his characteristic flair, claimed he came up with it himself. Either way, it was perfect. He was a dunking savant, a player whose on-court persona was as massive as his physical gifts. He was called the man-child, a fitting descriptor for an 18-year-old with a grown man's body who played with a kind of untamed, raw power the league had rarely seen. But with that power came a distinct lack of control. From his earliest days as a rookie, his struggles with foul trouble were apparent. It was a small, almost unnoticeable crack in the foundation of his game, but it was a sign of things to come, a foreshadowing of the chaotic, record-breaking seasons that would later define his improbable career.
You know, guys today, I think, are so serious. When the game starts, you say, after the game, "Hey, man, you guys beat Detroit. How you feel?" "Well, we made our shots and we moved the ball around and they're a good team." Nobody cares about that. You want to hear, "Yeah, I dunked on him. I'll dunk on his mama next week. I dunked on the whole team and I got more for him." Whole lot more where they come from.
Darryl Dawkins spent the first 7 years of his career, from 1975 to 1982, with the Philadelphia 76ers. He wasn't immediately a superstar, but he was a key piece of a powerhouse team. Initially, he served as a raw but electrifying complement to the team's established stars, a jolt of energy and brute force off the bench. But his talent was too immense to ignore, and he quickly evolved into a crucial part of their success. With his intimidating presence in the paint and his highlight reel offense, he helped lead the Sixers to the NBA Finals an incredible 3 times between 1977 and 1980. While his defensive aggressiveness often limited his minutes due to foul trouble, his ability to change a game with a single thunderous play was undeniable. He was a constant threat, a player who could dominate even the best centers in the league on any given night. In the 1980 NBA Finals against the Los Angeles Lakers, he proved his mettle on the biggest stage, dropping 25 points in Game 1 and putting up multiple 20-point games against the legendary Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. But it was in 1979 that Dawkins cemented his place in basketball lore forever. In 2 separate games, just weeks apart, he unleashed dunks of such ferocious power that he literally shattered the glass backboards. The first, against the Kansas City Kings, he named the chocolate thunder flying, robinzine crying, teeth shaking, glass breaking, rump roasting, bun toasting, wham bam, I am jam. The arena fell silent as glass rained down on the court. The game was delayed for over an hour. It was a moment of pure, unadulterated power, and it was so impactful that it forced the NBA to fundamentally change its equipment, leading directly to the adoption of breakaway rims that are now standard across the league. Dawkins became famous for this blend of charisma, physical dominance, and on-court theatrics. His press conferences were must-see events, filled with vivid, otherworldly descriptions of his dunks and his philosophy on life, which he claimed to have learned on his home planet of Lovetron. But even as his star rose, the one constant in his game remained: the fouls. During his time in Philadelphia, he consistently averaged over 3.5 fouls per game, a number that hinted at the unprecedented records he was about to set. Before the 1982-83 season, Darryl Dawkins was traded to the New Jersey Nets, who immediately signed him to a massive contract and made him the undisputed centerpiece of their franchise. It was here, with the ball in his hands and the team on his back, that Dawkins would enter the most dominant and most chaotic period of his career. It was here that he would go from being a player known for foul trouble to the undisputed king of it. The 1982-83 season was a statistical marvel of aggression. In 81 games played, Dawkins committed an astounding 379 personal fouls. It was a new single-season league record, an average of 4.7 fouls every single night. He was disqualified from 23 different games, fouling out in more than a quarter of his appearances and coming just 3 disqualifications short of the all-time record. The numbers were staggering. In more than half the games he played that season, Darryl Dawkins finished with at least 5 personal fouls, teetering on the edge of elimination. It was a record that seemed unbreakable, a testament to a style of play that was simply too physical for the rules of the game. And then, the very next season, he broke it. In the 1983-84 campaign, Dawkins was even more aggressive. In 81 games, he shattered his own record by committing an incredible 386 personal fouls. His average climbed to 4.8 fouls per game. He fouled out 17 more times that year. In a 2-season window, Darryl Dawkins had committed 765 fouls and been ejected from 40 games. No one in the history of the sport had ever played with such reckless abandon. But here's the paradox of Darryl Dawkins. Despite the constant threat of disqualification, he was not a liability. He was the opposite. During this same period, he was playing the best basketball of his life. He was the Nets' starting center, their defensive anchor, and their most reliable offensive weapon. In that record-breaking 1983-84 season, he averaged career highs across the board: 16.8 points and 6.7 rebounds per game, all while shooting a hyper-efficient 59.3% from the field. He was a monster on the defensive end as well, setting the Nets franchise record with 13 blocks in a single game on November 5th, 1983. He was committing fouls at a historic rate, but he was also dominating at an elite level. So, what was behind this unprecedented foul rate? Why was one of the league's most effective players constantly in trouble with the officials? The answer lies in a combination of his unique playing style, his reputation, and the era in which he played. First and foremost was Dawkins' philosophy on the court. He played a game built on raw physical dominance and intimidation. His job was to protect the rim, challenge every shot, and battle against the other elite centers of his day. Men like Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Moses Malone, and Robert Parrish, night after grueling night. He refused to give an inch. He believed in using his strength as a weapon, and that often meant initiating contact that referees couldn't ignore. His reputation also preceded him. Once he became known as a physical, aggressive player, the officials began to watch him more closely. As Dawkins himself put it, "They watched for me." He felt that his every move was scrutinized, and that he was being officiated differently than other players. The context of the era is also crucial. The NBA in the late 70s and early 80s was a far more physical league than it is today. Contact in the paint was constant, and the rules were enforced with more leniency. However, Dawkins believed his brand of physicality was something else entirely, something the league was unprepared for. He famously said, "Referees had never seen a football player come in and play basketball. They'd call me for everything." He saw himself as an outsider, a different kind of athlete whose power was so immense that it was systematically legislated out of the game, one whistle at a time. The most remarkable part of Darryl Dawkins' story isn't that he fouled so much, it's that he was so incredibly effective in spite of it. He mastered the art of playing on the edge, of managing his aggression just enough to stay on the floor when it mattered most. His game was a high-wire act, and for 2 spectacular seasons in New Jersey, he never fell off. His impact was felt all over the court. He was a force of nature in the post, setting relentless screens that freed up his teammates, battling for every physical rebound, and finishing at the rim with his signature backboard-shaking power. Even with the constant risk of fouling out, his coaches trusted him with major minutes. During his record-setting 1983 to 1984 season, he was on the court for nearly 30 minutes a night, a testament to how valuable he was to the team's success. And the team was a success. With Dawkins as their anchor, the New Jersey Nets had the best seasons in their history up to that point. They finished 49-33 in his first year and 45-37 in his second, establishing themselves as a legitimate contender in the Eastern Conference. His crowning achievement came in the 1984 NBA playoffs. The Nets were heavy underdogs against the defending world champions, the Philadelphia 76ers, led by the legendary Moses Malone. It was a matchup against his former team, the team that had traded him away. In a stunning upset, Dawkins led the Nets to a victory in the 5-game series. It was the first playoff series victory in the franchise's entire NBA history, and Dawkins was the driving force behind it. He was magnificent in that series, and throughout the 1984 playoffs, averaging 18.4 points per game and scoring a career in playoff high 32 points in one contest. He didn't just compete, he dominated, delivering clutch defensive plays, key blocks, and crucial baskets, proving that not even the threat of a referee's whistle could hold him back when the stakes were highest. Darryl Dawkins' career was a whirlwind of power, personality, and paradoxes. Over 14 NBA seasons, he left an indelible mark on the league, compiling over 8,700 points, 4,400 rebounds, and more than 1,000 blocks. He played in 726 career games, averaging a solid 12 points and 6.1 rebounds while shooting an incredibly efficient 57.2% from the field, a figure that was in the top 10 all-time when he retired. He was never named an All-Star, a glaring omission that speaks more to his unconventional style than his actual impact on the game. He was, however, a fan favorite everywhere he went, a cult legend who led both the 76ers and the Nets through some of their most successful eras. He played in 3 NBA Finals and was a member of the 1989 Detroit Pistons, though he did not play in the postseason run that won them a championship. His legacy, however, is written in broken records and broken backboards. He led the league in personal fouls 3 times in a 5-season span. and his single-season record of 386 fouls is widely considered unbreakable in the modern NBA, a relic of a bygone era of physicality. But his influence went far beyond the stat sheet. He changed the very equipment of the game with his powerful dunks. He brought an unprecedented level of showmanship and personality to the court, naming his dunks and creating the Chocolate Thunder persona that captivated a generation of fans. More than anything, he was a pioneer. He showed that a big man could be more than just a lumbering presence in the paint. He could be an explosive athletic force. His style and attitude laid the groundwork for the next generation of dominant, charismatic centers. Superstars like Shaquille O'Neal and Dwight Howard have often cited Dawkins as a direct inspiration, a player who showed them what was possible. The story of Darryl Dawkins is a paradox. He was a player defined by his limitations just as much as his strengths. He was a force of nature who was constantly being whistled back to earth. His career was a battle, not just against his opponents, but against the very rules of the game he played. He fouled out, but he never checked out of the fight. He left behind a legacy of shattered backboards, shattered records, and an unforgettable style that was all his own. Long before Shaquille O'Neal made it his trademark, Darryl Dawkins defined what it meant to be an athletic, charismatic, and utterly dominant big man. Though a series of injuries would ultimately derail the later stages of his career, and though he never received the official accolade of an all-star selection, his cultural and physical influence on the game of basketball endured. He was a player who proved that your impact can't always be measured in the box score. Some players change the game with skill. Others change it with intelligence. Darryl Dawkins changed it with pure, unadulterated force. Darryl Dawkins didn't just play basketball, he changed it. He challenged its rules, its equipment, and its very definition of what a big man could be. Darryl Dawkins left us far too soon in 2015, but what he brought to the game is still with us. He was unforgettable for his power, his personality, and the way he played the game on his own terms. And he was a star who showed us you could foul out, but never fade away. He left a mark that goes beyond stats or highlights. Rest in peace, Darryl. Basketball remembers.